So the new maps have a lot of positive things going for them. Number one, a lot of the districts you will see are much more compact than they used to be. The districts also were drawn so that they respected jurisdictional boundaries as much as possible. So in fact, for example, the city of Lynchburg, instead of being cut into 4 separate districts, are now wholly contained within single districts. The special masters ignored the incumbent addresses and therefore did not work on any incumbent protections when they were drawing maps, and prison gerrymandering was ended. So we'll take a look at a couple of maps. This is the current congressional district number 11, which encompasses part of Fairfax as well as, I think, Prince William County. This is the district that Gerald Connolly, who we were just talking about, represents right now. And you can see that it's kind of a weird district. Looks like an old man crossing the street or something. And let's take a look at the new district, CD 11. You can see it here in a faint pink outline. And you can see that all of CD 11 is within Fairfax County. So whoever represents this district next is Gerald Connolly, because we had elections on this congressional districts last fall. He will just be talking to Fairfax constituents going forward. And if we take a look at the state Senate, you can see that this is one district that was drawn. It's Senate District 40, which will be the district that Senator Barbara Favola is running in. You can see that it's entirely enclosed within Arlington, and except for this little part of Southeast Arlington, because of population reasons, it couldn't be included in SD 40. And then if we take a look at what the district looks like that Barbara Favola is representing now, it does include part of Arlington, but it extends into McLean, much of Fairfax County here, and it goes into Loudoun County, where she represents voters in 6 precincts alone. So if just by looking at this comparison, you can see the compactness and also the respect for jurisdictional boundaries. And we're proud of the work that the League of Women Voters of Virginia worked on to try and bring fair maps, to engage people, encourage people to participate and submit maps and comments. And for our work, we were honored by the U.S. League in 2022 with the Powering Democracy Award. So we were quite pleased with that. So I thought I'd do a little bragging today. All right, so let us take a look at the new maps. And this is congressional districts. So Congressional District 8 is here, Arlington County, part of McLean, et cetera. Congressional districts, of course, have to include a lot more people within the population. Here's Congressional District 11 again, and Congressional District 10 is quite much larger because the population density is much lower. Okay, and here is the state Senate for Northern Virginia. Our numbering system, we go from 1 through 40. We used to have 32, 33, et cetera here, but the district, one thing you'll find is a lot of you, or I would say all of us, are living in a district now that probably has a different number, at least one of the districts. So you can see 40 and 39 for Arlington, Alexandria area, part of Fairfax County, and 34 is south of Alexandria. And later on, I'll give you links where you can go and look at these maps yourself and zoom in if you want to. So you can see where they are. And here's Loudoun County here. So they are, again, respecting the district boundaries. And then here's a little bit of close-up for the northern part of Northern Virginia. So 35 here is Annandale, and I think North Springfield is in this area. 37 includes the City of Falls Church, West Falls Church, and goes towards Tyson's and beyond. And this is, again, McLean and further into Fairfax County. Okay, here's sorry about the map. This is what the House of Delegates kind of looks like. We have 100 seats in the House of Delegates. Northern Virginia pretty much has the lower numbers for this. So we have Arlington has 1, 2, and part of 3. Alexandria has part of 3 and 5. Here's Bailey's Crossroads, 7 Corners, and Falls Church. Annandale is down here in 14. So that's a look at our section of the area. So what does this mean to you? As I mentioned, most of us, if not all of us, will have new district numbers to look at. Both of my state Senate and House of Delegates districts are different numbers, and the district lines have changed. So my senator who is representing me now happens to be Janet Howell. She is not running for re-election, but she would not be, if she was running for election, she would not be on my ballot this year. So you will find new names on your ballot in the primary election if you have one, and definitely in the general election as well. So one thing that happened is, as a result of the new maps being drawn by the special masters, is incumbents were paired in the same districts. Sometimes 2, in a few cases, 3 incumbents were actually living in the same districts. What has happened is a few incumbents have resigned or retired, such as Senator Howell, Senator Saslaw, Delegate Ken Plum. Those are 3 of the most senior legislators, and they have decided to retire. Some incumbents are not running for re-election in their current delegate or state Senate offices. The delegates in particular, some of them have chosen to run for higher office. Some incumbents did move, and I think, and some are decided they're going to stay where they are, and they're challenging each other either in the primary and or in the fall. Another thing that has happened is, because of the new districts, a lot of the voters in new districts will be new to whoever's been, will be running in that district. So here are the top 4 that 93 to 100% of their voters are unknown to them. So Senator George Barker, who I believe is in Fairfax, his new Senate District 36, 93% of the voters are not his current constituents. So he will have to go out and knock on a lot of doors and introduce himself to his voters. And the same thing for in SD 32, Ibrahim Samira, I believe, is running for Senate instead of, he was a former delegate. So again, you can find this on VPAP, and there's a longer list, so you can take a look at the rest. So you might be wondering, so how do I find out if I live in a different district? And you should do some research before you go to vote, because we don't want to go in there, walk in and say, who are these people? That's not who I expected to see on my ballot. So one of the simplest and best places for you to start would be vpap.org. All you have to do is enter your address here and click on search. They will tell you what districts you're in, what your old districts were like, who is representing you now, and whether those elected officials will be running in your new districts as well. So that's a good place to start. If you really want to get into the weeds on the redistricting process, go to virginiaredistricting.org. This is the official government website. Anything you want to know is there. All of the recorded meetings are there, the hearings are there, the written testimony, the dozens and dozens of draft maps are there if you want to look. And there are links down at the bottom of this landing page where you can go to the actual maps. You can go to an interactive page where you can zoom in and out to different parts of the Commonwealth to see what the maps look like, or the districts. You can also go to the PDF version where each district is on a separate page. So you can get a clear picture of, once you find out, for example, mine is Senate District 40, I can go and look and get a better feel for where the actual boundaries are. And I also need to put in a plug for Vote 411, which is the League's voter information website. You can also find out what's on your ballot here by typing in your address. It'll give you some of that information about your districts. The other thing that you can find there is information that was submitted by the candidates. This shows 3 of the people running for sheriff here in Arlington. So questionnaires were mailed out by the local leagues to all of their candidates that running in their jurisdiction. And whoever responded with the answers to the questionnaire, their responses are posted on the Vote 411 site. And they are not edited in any way unless there's anything like glaring. So you can find out what their stand is on different issues. So again, vote411.org. And so here, if you want to use a QR code, it's there, vpap.org and vote411.org. So be sure you check, let other people in your family, your neighborhood, your groups know that they should check as well. And then before I end, and I'm almost ready to end, I do want to mention that in Arlington, we're using ranked choice voting. Arlington is the first and only jurisdiction in Virginia that is using ranked choice voting in the primary election. And no one is, at this point, is planning to use it for the general. Arlington will consider using it for the general election. So we are using it for county board. That is what the General Assembly said, is that counties and cities may use ranked choice voting as a way to mark your ballots and count votes for their local governing bodies. So that would be Board of Supervisors, county boards, and city councils. So you can go to upvotevirginia.org, upvoteva.org/Arlington to find out what's going on here. You can also go to the Arlington County election site to get more information about ranked choice voting. And I hope that you'll start hearing people talk about that in your local areas. There are discussions going on, and we need people to come on board and get educated and start talking to your local officials about using ranked choice voting.
Thank you, Chris. Big changes. I lost both my incumbents, who I really like, for state senator and representative, and the numbers changed. So all the people running are new to me and new to our district. So it's really important that people, pay attention this year, because the things have really changed. So June has been monitoring the chat for questions. So June, I'm going to turn it over to you to see what questions we have.
Okay, we just have a couple of questions. The first question was, what is prison gerrymandering? And Sheila gave a basic answer definition of it, about that it was basically counting folks who were incarcerated in prison at the prison rather than at their address. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, so it has changed. And the reason this was concerning is that most of the large prisons are in the more rural areas of the state. And so they were counted in their locality where the prison is located. Now they are counted as a voter in their last known place of address. So for example, if they were from Fairfax County, but they were incarcerated down in, say, Bland County, I'm not sure where they're exactly located, they are now counted for population reasons in Fairfax County. And so we think that better represents where the voters are, because these people will be leaving at some point and becoming voters, probably in their home counties, but they could move, of course.
Okay, thank you. And then I had only, I think, unless someone else has added one lately, someone wanted to know about Kathleen Murray. Is she running against Representative Sullivan?
I don't think so. Ann, do you know?
No, she's not. And I mentioned in that chat, just for other persons here, that VPAP information was, that list was kind of old.
Yeah, I think it's from,
it said that it was from January. And so now it's already May. And most of those conflicts, if you want to call them conflicts, have been ironed out. So Kathleen Murphy is not running. She resigned. She retired. Rip Sullivan is running, I think, unopposed in his district. There was somebody else too that I saw on that list that I thought, oh, no. Oh, the Kay Corey also retired from office anyway, resigned, maybe is a better word there. So she is not challenging either. There were a couple of others. So my suspicion would be that VPAP has a more up-to-date list. Maybe.
I looked and I could not, they probably have a list, but I couldn't find it. Not a
Okay.
visual anyway. There probably
Okay.
is a list, not a visual.
Okay.
Yes,
I
they have.
Right
that's
now,
correct.
as far as my list goes, I have one more question, and because I really want to know your thought on this, I want to make sure we get this in and while you still have the floor. And that's, what do you see as the advantages for ranked choice voting?
Okay. And it's used in different parts of the country, and a lot of political parties in Virginia have used it for their caucuses or, their own elections. And if you look back on the 2021, was that when we elected governor? I think so. So the Republicans used ranked choice voting, and they were able to come up with a team that was strong, that was representative of the support of at least half of the voters who voted in their caucus. And they were able to, go on to win office in Virginia. What we find is that, number one, campaigns are more civil or positive in nature, because candidates now, instead of having to only talk to their base supporters, their core voters, they will have to say, okay, you may not want me as your first choice. Would you consider ranking me as your second choice or your third choice? And so they have to talk to more voters, and they have to present themselves in a more positive way, emphasize the positive things so they can attempt to reach more voters for their support. We have found that in many jurisdictions, the results end up with, you have more diverse city councils or legislatures when you can use ranked choice voting. The other thing is sometimes it's called instant runoff. In some place like Georgia, you remember they have to have a runoff because the candidates don't get 50% plus one more vote, but they have to come back weeks later. It costs a lot of money, and the voter turnout is much lower when you have the runoff election. If you have ranked choice voting, you already know who the second choice is if your first choice was eliminated, your ballot will show who your second choice is. So they can do the scanning right there without having to go to another election. So the main thing is that you want, let's say if you have 6 people running for one seat, someone could win with 23% of the vote because everybody else had less than 23% of the vote. But that means 77% of the voters did not support that candidate. Whereas in ranked choice voting, the candidates have to get to a certain threshold where they have more support from more voters than anybody else. So I hope that gives you some reasons.
Good, thank you. I just one more question, I think. Just going back to the prisoners, wanted to know which prisoners can vote in Virginia.
Well, if you have not been convicted of a felony, you can still vote, even if you're in prison. Now, getting a ballot, getting registered is tough. I'm actually going in with some supporters to our Arlington jail. We've registered a few people. Now, as you may or may not know, Governors McAuliffe and Northam restored the right to vote to over 200,000 Virginians who had felony convictions on their record. And if you look at the people who were convicted of felonies or in prison in general, the overwhelming majority of the people there are people of color. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to work against. But now, just in the last few months, the process has been kind of changed by the current governor. There are more questions added to the application to get your rights restored. And we are not sure exactly which criteria will allow you to move forward or which ones are automatically disqualify you. It is very unclear, and we are very concerned that people will not be getting their right to vote back. We did almost pass the right to automatic restoration of the right to vote with the constitutional amendment, but it was killed in subcommittee. So
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of comments in the chat as well as questions.
Okay, I'll have
So
to look at it later.
I just want to encourage people to go in and read the chat, because many of them are very enlightening. And
Okay,
Thank you, Chris. It was really wonderful to have somebody who was so involved and like you were, and kind of showing us the behind the scenes, the real detail of how that redistricting happened. So we really appreciate your expertise and your time tonight. So thanks very much.
Good.
Thank you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Robert Lester, who is the Civic Engagement Coordinator for the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. Robert is originally from Philadelphia, PA, and a graduate of Rutgers University, where he majored in political science. Before joining VICPP, Robert managed support services in most of Virginia's largest law firms. In his current role as Civic Engagement Coordinator, his primary focus is voter education, mobilization, and protection with civic and faith-based organizations. Robert is very civic-minded and volunteers with several organizations, which are not limited to Historic Jackson Ward Association, Club 533, Thebans Beneficial Club, and the YMCA, where he coached youth basketball for 18 consecutive years. Robert is married 34 years to Denise DeShields Lester and has 2 college graduate sons, Robert and Richard Lester. So Robert, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am so honored to be able to share a few words with you this evening. And I am going to start out by saying that my job, I actually get paid to every day get up and turn on the television and look into politics. Every day, every morning of my life, I wake up and tune into politics. It is very important, and a number of you on this call today know how important it is to be politically active, or what we term being civically engaged. I will start also by saying that my primary task is to build and assist. For a prime example, in the Northern Virginia chapter, to assist, not build, but to assist strong teams to guide and lead Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy voter engagement strategy for this year. And the team in Northern Virginia, you guys, you all are doing a great job. It's just an honor to join on your meetings. So today I want to talk a little bit about what Virginia Interfaith Center's plan is for 2023. And it may seem a little overwhelming when you look at some of the parts that we have lined up that we have to do this year. But I want to, before I go into every one of the steps of parts of the plan that we want to do, I want to mention some of the things that VICPP advocates for. And this is real important if we go back here and start here with our criminal justice reform, things that we're working with there on solitary confinement and ending profiteering in jails, and just trying to get more oversight over the prisons in Virginia. Our health equity, that's another area that we're advocating for on unconscious bias when it comes to dealing with physicians and things of that nature. Trying to have the authorization for drugs to be administered by midwives. Some of the other ones are worker and family support. We advocate for paid sick days and childhood assistance. And here's another big one that Sheila, my colleague, works on every day: affordable housing. Affordable housing is a issue kind of all over the country, but it's a major issue in Virginia, and it's everywhere in Virginia. The issue of affordable housing, or just being able to get an apartment and things of that nature. We have so many people living in motels and hotels. So I wanted to start there on the things that we're trying to make better for the citizens of Virginia. And how it's all going to come about is, it may seem simple, but it's just to cast a vote in your June 20th primary first, and then in the general election in November. So what is the plans for VICPP? One, we need to come together as teams, because each one of us as an individual can do a great job in communicating what we're advocating for to an elected official who is representing us, but it will carry more power if we have groups, more people involved. And that's not just our chapters, but other organizations. So we want to have a shared Virginia interfaith power trajectory. The League of Women Voters, they have a number of things that they advocate for, just like VICPP and different organizations, but generally we're all heading in the same trajectory. And so that is very important. We also want to grow our relationships and solidarity across the Commonwealth. This is going to be real important, as I mentioned before, we have more power with more people being involved. We want to build and support regional teams with purpose and commitment. Again, as I mentioned, the Northern Virginia chapter of VICPP, very motivated, has a strong commitment, and we need to model that behavior in some of our other areas of Virginia. And we're going to do that this year because these elections are so important. We want to develop plans for regional training and regional voter registration, and also to get out the vote. Again, we want to make sure everyone is registered to vote first. That's the very first step. But then we need to make sure folks cast their ballot and possibly help other people to be able to cast their ballot. Now, over the next 12 months, not next 8 months or so, up until and past this election and the general election, we are going to be strengthening our relationships in the regions. So when I'm speaking about civic engagement, a lot of times, tonight I'm talking to the Northern Virginia chapter. However, when I'm looking at, or when I get up every morning, I'm looking down in Hampton Roads, I'm looking in Central Virginia, I'm looking in the Western area out in Blacksburg and Roanoke. So, but we want to be able to collectively be able to work and support each other. It's just so much power in that. One of the goals that we have too is that we will be coming out and doing regional training from our central office. Sheila, my colleague that's on the call today, excellent presenter. Her and my other colleague, King Celine Kalfani, will be going out with me to different regions and doing additional training on registration and how to get out the vote. We are recruiting congregations in our plan, especially leading up into November. We're recruiting congregations all around the Commonwealth with a goal of 300 to 400 congregations committing to being 100% voting voters. They actually, we're asking the clergy leader to sign a document to say, I will ensure that my congregation is 100% voting, because it's just so important. We're going to be hosting candidate forums this year. You're going to hear a lot about them. And we have a number of organizations that have agreed to partner with us. And that's going to be really led with the League of Women Voters. It's real important, and I'll talk about this later on, about us being our nonpartisanship within VICPP. But the candidate forums, they're going to be announced later on, And it's going to be important that not only that you go and attend these forums and get the information directly from the potential elected official, but also bring folks with you, because the more educated our voters are, the better they will be at handling our what we call our legislative priorities and or the things we advocate for. Another thing is we want to meet with our the potential legislators or elected officials, and especially like after the primaries that are coming up, we want to engage those folks who win these primaries. Some of the areas around Virginia are what we call competitive areas, and some they're kind of set in stone. Like whoever wins this primary come June 20th, they will more than likely win the general election, because we have some areas that are heavily voting in one way or the other. They're not really contested. So that is real important that in this in the primaries that you do participate and do go out and vote and be fully informed on the issues before June 20th. And I'm going to go over some data later on that's associated with the primary elections. Another thing, some of our people who really want to help us and be a part of putting in candidates that represent our concerns or our priority areas, but they're not able to go out door to door or able to go and set up a table and try to register people. But there are other things that we'll be doing throughout VICPP that will allow even, someone that may be in their own residence, they can't come out. It's like postcarding and things of that nature. Last year, we sent approximately about 6,000 postcards to infrequent voters to encourage them to vote. This week, we're due to get the results of that that program. And we will be sharing that out with our different chapters and things about the results of those postcarding. And again, just trying to attend the candidate forums would be very important if you can't do more physical work of that nature. I'll close out by saying on May 31st, it is the Wednesday after the holiday, we will be hosting a training in Richmond. It's a training and planning session that we're having leaders or people who really want to be involved to come down to Richmond. It's going to be a session that's going to be held in a public library in Henrico County, and that's on May 31st. And we will have people from all over the Commonwealth, and we'll be sitting down and engaging and talking about different strategies and plans, how to better educate the folks when we go back out on being civically engaged. I welcome anyone on this call, each and everyone. I will, if everybody on the call could come, please do. But if you are available, to come down on May 31st, we're going to treat you really good. We're going to buy you lunch, and we're going to have a good time and try to make a difference in Virginia in 2023. So I will close there, and I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Robert. So June again has been keeping tabs on the chat. So June, I'm going to turn it over to you to funnel some questions to Robert.
Okay, I've got a number of questions. I think some may have, since the question come in, been answered, but I'm just going to sort of reiterate to make sure if there's someone wrote something, that we get as much information for them as we can. I know, I think one of the big questions is, with everything happening, there's going to be a lot of people having new candidates for running, and how is the best ways to get the regular people who don't seem to be motivated already and on voting to, how can we do best help get them to want to vote, I guess is.
Yeah, and you know, this question came up on our call earlier today. What I have to do, what I'm recommending you have to appeal to them. They have to have some sort of a stake in this. So when the issues that we advocate for at VICPP, I will tell you, I met some young folks, and I was talking to them about affordable housing. I said, first of all, I said, so where are you living? And they said, oh, well, I just graduated from college. I'm looking for an apartment and things like that. And I was hearing the struggles that the person was communicating to me. And I said, hey, listen, one of the things that I do is advocate for affordable housing. What I recommend is you have to, the person has to be vested in something. If it's childcare, if they have to have some buy-in, because if not, they're going to try, they will, I hate to say it, sit on the sidelines and say, my vote really isn't going to matter. You got to get them to tune into something that really affects them, and then they will engage. They will. Hopefully that answers.
I want to just add to that question, but do you see that people voting on one issue is also a problem if they just engage on one issue?
Well, that it can be that we have multiple issues, but the main thing is we need to get them involved. So for example, this is a bad example. If you're trying to
Don't give it.
I was gonna say, would you like someone else to?
Yeah, help me, Sheila. Help me, Sheila.
I don't want to take away the spotlight at all, but just real briefly, I think that it's true. We want people to be entirely engaged, but in terms of turnout, these non-federal election years, non-gubernatorial election years, this year, when we elect the Senate, factoid I learned today, has the lowest turnout in the 4-year cycle in Virginia. This is the year when our whole legislature is up for grabs. And so people who might understand why it's a big deal to vote in the presidential election because they're inundated with ads, they need to understand whatever policy it is that they're gonna see as affecting their life. And so that's your kind of hook to get them in the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. I don't want people to just vote based on somebody's position on the speed limits and how your insurance should change based on what speed limit you got a ticket in. Like, sure, that's a position someone could have. That could be a bill that gets passed this year. No one should vote on just that issue, but they might not get to the polls if they don't know what's at stake.
Is there a place specifically, since you listed all, that people could go to see what districts are vulnerable?
Yes, and Chris earlier mentioned that this is the website VPAP. VPAP there has a list of all of the districts, the Senate districts and the House districts, and you will see there is a section on there that will tell you, we call it, it's the results of the elections from 2021 with the last the last gubernatorial race. It will tell you based on that race and that specific, the new district or area, the new district, what it did in 2021. So for example, it may say, if I'm looking at the Loudoun area, which is now Senate District 31, that area voted 0.7% more for the Republican candidate, who happens to be Governor Youngkin. 0.7 is very, very close. So it's 51, pardon me, 0.7 is 50.3. It was very, very close. That is a race based on history that is very competitive. So someone should have their eyes on there.
You should just look at the election list
Yeah.
at VPAP. Folks can look at their own, because we, as a nonpartisan organization, we're
Right.
not. The truth of the matter is everything is up for grabs this year.
Right.
Even places that have voted strongly one way in the past can vote a different way, but we are focusing some of our attention where it's competitive.
Very good.
Okay, I had there was a question, again, I'm trying to get through all these things that, but is there, I think we've seen in districts that a lot of, in areas, a lot of people are now focusing on school boards. And what person would like to know, is there any advocacy for local school boards?
See, what we would do there is rely on the local chapters. So for example, when our folks come together on May 31st, which is a few weeks before the primary, we're going to have breakout sessions. So folks from Northern Virginia, they're going to be breaking out with, and it's not just going to be VICPP people, there will be League of Women Voters, there will be other organizations that will be there. And those regional groups will determine the path for the local elections up there. It's like school boards or board of supervisors and things of that, because something that's important in Northern Virginia may not necessarily be what's happening in the Eastern area. So when we get to those breakouts, you'll hear more, and we're going to be coming out to the areas as well.
Okay, let's see, I've got one question was, who should a congregation contact if they want to aim for 100% voting?
Okay, so you could contact myself, and or we have it on the website now. The form is there for the clergy leader. They can fill it out. We recommend that it may be a member in the church who wants to ensure that their congregation is 100%. However, we want to make sure that they do talk to their faith leader about that. But the form is on the website. Oh,
well, VICPP eventually let us know what is the position of various candidates on their VICP issues.
We would be doing that through the candidate forums. So we will be coming out to the areas and conducting candidate forums. You will definitely hear about the VICPP has not committed to doing forums before for the primaries. However, there are some chapters and there are a number of organizations that are doing them in the different regions, areas. But after the primaries, you're going to hear a lot more about the candidate forums for being educated.
Okay, I think I've caught all the questions, or maybe they were all come in, but if we did not answer your question tonight, you've got within the chat contact addresses for both Chris and Robert. So that's whether you like it or not, I'm going to tell people they're welcome to write you if they do have a question still.
Good.
Thanks, June. And thank you, Robert. One thing that I want to suggest, just that's been very helpful to me, is to go to the VICPP website and sign up for whatever, they have a weekly newsletter that their executive director, Kim Bobo, puts out. But also during an election cycle, there are alerts. So for instance, it could be for a candidate forum in your area. And so they're wonderful about targeting those of us who are in a certain area and saying, okay, you know, Nancy, I'm in Senate District 33 now, I think. There's going to be a candidate forum. So I would suggest you sign up for whatever newsletters and alerts that you can on the VICPP website. I think that would be very helpful. And Sheila, do you have any other sort of summary things that you want to add?
Those are the important ones.
So thank you, Robert, very much. Lots to pay attention to in this election cycle. So we both appreciate both you and Chris, your time tonight. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ann Murphy for some concluding comments.
Thanks, Nancy. And again, just to reiterate our thanks to the speakers, as well as to everyone who joined us tonight. I just say in conclusion, so what did we learn? Kay Francis began by reminding us of the Interfaith Center's mantra of learn, pray, and act. So here are some of the things, I think, just to reiterate. We learned that there are new districts and new numbers associated with those districts in Virginia as a result of redistricting, and that might mean a change. Certain things certainly will change. So what is the action? So know before you vote, and invite your neighbors to know before they vote. Share that information with them. It's very, nonpartisan, non-controversial. Just let people know. What else did we learn? We learned that the current incumbents, your state senator, your state delegate, is still in that position and will continue in that position until December the 31st. The newly elected members will take office on January 1st. So if Janet Howell or Barbara Favola or Dave Marsden or whomever is your representative, that person is still your representative for the rest of this calendar year. What else did we learn? Well, we didn't hear too much about this, but I'll just share with you that in-person voting is currently open in Virginia for the primaries. It started May 5th. It continues till June the 17th. There's also the potential for voting by mail. You will have to request an absentee ballot. And remember that the general election is scheduled for November 7th. So speak up with your neighbors and your friends, share those key dates with them and any location information that you have. What else did we learn? We learned that the Interfaith Center is collaborating with other organizations throughout the Commonwealth. And so what's your action? Your action, my action, is to open my eyes, open my ears, pay attention, so that I know what everybody is doing, and to see if my congregation would sign on to the effort to be a 100% voting congregation. The other action is that there will be opportunities later this summer and in the fall, I presume, to postcard to low turnout areas and districts. And VICPP and other collaborating organizations are going to need the help of all of us. Another action that I heard was make sure if you're not currently signed up with the Interfaith Center to receive their weekly roundup, that's their weekly newsletter, and their action alerts. Now's the time to do that. So some of you joining us tonight, I think, are newer comers, and we probably have your name and your email address now by virtue of having signed up for tonight. So you can expect to begin receiving some information from us. We hope that tonight's program stirred your imagination and that you will share your efforts along those lines. Remember, in the work of justice and advocacy, it's the power of we over the power of I. And Robert talked about that, but that's a very common thought process in any kind of community organizing, the power of we over the power of I. And to that degree, I thank all 50 plus of you who joined us tonight. I just want to remind everyone, I always do, those of you who know me well and know that I've been doing this for a while, The Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy is a 501c3 organization. That means that it is nonpartisan, but it also means that their existence is dependent upon financial support from each of us, from various teams, from some foundations and corporations, and definitely from faith communities. So if you're a member of a faith community, you might ask your faith leader or your business manager if there's some way that maybe that congregation could support the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy in the work that we are doing. And beyond that, again, I thank you all for joining us. Information about the recording will be available on the center's website, and you can expect to receive a follow-up email. Eva Thorpe, one of our team leaders, has been collecting everything we've been talking about, and she's going to put that together in summary form and attach to it, I hope, Chris DeRosa's PDF files that she shared with us tonight, which were, I thought, very well done graphically and very helpful. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate seeing you. Have a wonderful rest of this month, and stay tuned for the outcome of the June 20th election. I know your vote will be there.